She was a songwriter and a singer, and she'd sing Christian songs. So she lived in Franklin for quite a while. And she was part of a Baptist church that would go minister to the inmates. Well, she played a guitar. If any of you ever had her as a teacher, you probably remember her playing a guitar and teaching you the names of the days of the week and all that stuff. She created a song for that. I'll teach it to you if you ever sing it. Well, anyway, she went to the Franklin jail, which was in the top of a courthouse. And she sang her songs with her guitar, and she was real pretty. She had long blonde hair, and you know, the inmates liked her music. They probably liked her better. But anyway, so she sang. Then one day, she moved to Bunkie. And with that Baptist church, they came to the Avoylles jail. And that's where the story gets interesting. She's singing, and after about 30 minutes, one guy raised his hand, "Hey, I remember you in the Franklin jail." He made it to both of them. Well, oh, John, did y'all ever hear that story?
No.
Really? Can't believe I haven't told y'all that. When did you hear? Did you? Oh, you didn't go upstairs? Okay. Did you see him?
I didn't get to see him.
Where's Ryan?
He's on the way.
Okay. All right. That's my son, grandson. All right. When the judge.
I'm up here.
Now, wait a minute. You were behind me.
I walk through. Everybody's down.
You heard the story about Susan? Oh, okay.
Part of it.
Part of it. Okay. Singing in two different jails. She sang in the Franklin jail when she moved to the Avoylles. She came to this jail and was singing, and one of the inmates said, "Hey, I remember you from Franklin." He was in the Franklin jail when she sang there. Okay, now is the time you can ask us any questions you want. Is Joey Frank still up here?
He wasn't up there when I left just now.
Oh, okay. Well, I think there was an exchange of grandchildren or something. So if y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And then the judge will too. You can ask either one of them, and you can record our answers and post it on Facebook. Surely somebody got a question.
When did the fourth court officially close?
We think, by memory, when Ponch was in office till '79, he started the construction. And Judge, do you remember if it was finished before Bill took office?
I don't know that it was finished before
Okay,
Bill took
so it's
office.
probably 1980, 1981. And it was built for 35 people, okay? The capacity here was 18, but it far exceeded 18. And so they built the new one for 35, and then Bill expanded it over the years. Yes?
What happens if that tax is turned down?
That's a very good question. We're not sure. If the tax is turned down, obviously the next day we're going to come here and go to court like we have been doing. And I don't know how many of you have ever been to court for whatever reason, as a witness, as a juror, as a defendant, civil case, whatever. This floor was actually built for one judge in 1927. The judge's office, correct me if I'm wrong, Judge, was right here at the corner.
Right there, in the
okay.
corner.
And Judge Sprue's office now is there, where it used to be a grand jury room. Then they had a law library here with a restroom that could be used, and that's the same restroom. The one courtroom was huge. It went all the way to the hallway on the other side. Well, when we added a second judge, which was 82, 84,
No, it was after that, Charles. It was probably, no, the second judge you come in 82, that's right. It was kind of a half of a courtroom first.
right,
That's
then they cut off, they had cut off part of it because they needed more space for employees. The DA's office was actually where Judge Bennett's office is now. I don't know if y'all know where his is. It's on the opposite side. And then they had, that's where the grand jury room was, right?
This room, this floor was built for, like you said, one judge, one DA.
Right.
And and a secretary for each.
Right.
I think we have a total of about 16 people up here right now.
Oh, yeah. Let me give you an example. Obviously, in 1927, there weren't as many crimes as there are now. We did some searching of our own records that the Supreme Court keeps. In 1998, and help me if I'm wrong, from 1998 to now, we have doubled the number of criminal cases. Not just misdemeanors. We've doubled the number of felonies, doubled the number of misdemeanors, and practically doubled the civil cases. And plus, we have a lot more juvenile issues now. And this is 1998. For me, it's not that long ago. Okay, I mean, I know some of you probably think I'm really old. But I'm not. I'm only 64. Remember the Paul McCartney song? Will you still love me? Will you still need me? When I'm 64, I got one. So we really have doubled the number of cases, which is one reason why we got a second judge. And now we have been pushing for a third judge for about 5 or 6 years. We don't know if it's going to be a third judge, like what we call general, criminal, civil, juvenile, or if this third judge could be something that'll handle just juvenile cases and maybe child custody cases, because that's called a specialty court and would relieve the 2 judges to be able to handle the number of criminal cases we have. This is not made up. You can go to the Supreme Court and view this. The number of criminal cases that we have scheduled starting September 17th, if you got a jury notice, you're supposed to be here on the 17th. We actually come on the 16th and try to get some of them to plead guilty. We have over 70 felony cases in Division A. We have over 70 in Division B. Now, how many of you know we can't try more than 3 cases in a week? Okay, if we were able to try 3 cases. So if we had to try every case, we would only be able to handle 1 or 2. So we do try to get them to plead guilty. But what's happening is the docket backs up. So that's one reason why we need a third judge. The criminal docket is just clogging up everything. Unfortunately, if you have a civil case, you ever have a civil case? You know how long it took you to actually get to trial? Other than domestic, like a divorce or something? If you had a jury trial, so when are you scheduling jury trials now, Judge? For what day?
January and February.
Okay, so if you had a jury trial, that a case that's ready to go to trial, you file a motion to fix with the judge, a civil case, and he's setting them in January and February.
And March? Yeah.
And March, right. They try to schedule several on the same day because a lot of cases get settled before it happens. So our docket has increased. Whether you agree with taxes or not, we need something. People have talked about several things. Number one, they talked about us buying buildings, tearing them down or remodeling them, and building a parking lot. We have, the public parking area is 75. On jury week, we'll probably have 200 people here. Now, not everyone has a car, okay? Not everyone has a car, we know that. But it's very crowded, very difficult to find parking. So when we talk about a new facility, we're talking about it for basically 3 reasons: space, security, and parking, and restrooms. I'll throw restrooms in there. The security part is one of the most difficult things. I'm sure all of you know that sometimes judges make decisions that aren't like you want, right? Just like the district attorney makes decisions that some people don't like. Why are you prosecuting my son? You know, that kind of thing. Well, for security, we don't concern ourselves too much with the DA, okay? But we do concern ourselves with the judges. Judge Sproul, to get to his courtroom, leaves that door, walks down the hallway where everybody is standing to go to the restroom. Many times 4 or 5 inmates will be standing in line to go to the restroom with a guard. Okay, but the guards who come here do not have pistols. They don't have weapons. They're security guards. And these guys are in chains, okay? So he has to walk from there to here. Judge Bennett has maybe 2 feet less of a distance, 2 or 3 feet less of a distance in the open public. It's not just inmates we're concerned about. It's people who have, started to say the wrong word, peed off at a judge or ticked off at a judge. Why'd you decide against me? You know, judge, you wrong. Or stopping them in the middle, you know, that sort of thing. So that is a major concern. The other factor is when we have inmates here, we have to put them in the courtroom when both courts are going. We were fortunate, I think it was the last jury term, where Judge Bennett's docket was cleared, so we were able to put all the inmates in the other courtroom.
34.
And then we combined the juries to come in Division A because we had 3 trials scheduled that were really going to go. Well, the first one pled, so we didn't have that trial. So we couldn't start the second one because it was scheduled for Wednesday. We have one scheduled for Thursday. So we had 100 people in this courtroom, which is larger than Judge Bennett's. And they were very upset because they came the next day and that one resolved itself. And then before they came back, we were able to tell them you don't have to come back. Now, look, there were some people who said we set that up. We set it up because we need a new facility. Let me explain something to you. If we have jury week and you, as a juror, sees one of the inmates in chains, that juror and anybody else who saw him is disqualified. Because we have to keep them on the second floor most of the time and wait for their trial to be called up to get them up in plain clothes, without cuffs, without the stuff. Ask the jurors, prospective jurors, to step outside into the halls so we can take care of that case, because we can't accept a plea when prospective jurors are present. It is a nightmare. And if you go to other courtrooms, you will see judges walk into their courtroom from their office. They have private entrances, private restrooms. They don't have to crisscross. When a person, and we've actually had this happen, and I hope you'll appreciate me saying this without taking
Grand
offense.
parish or several parishes.
A guy was accused of a sex offense. The victim was in the hallway, because we don't have private offices. If I have to meet with a lawyer or defendants to talk to them about their case because they want to talk to the DA, I ask the law clerk to let me use his office. That is the only private office we have, okay? And we can go, sometimes Judge Spruill will let us use his office, or Judge Bennett will let us use his office. Anyway, this particular sex offender was walking out of the courtroom with chains. The victim, who was a minor, was sitting in the hallway. When he passed by, he rubbed against her leg. Now, of course, we could have charged him again with another crime. At that point, the victim did not want to testify. She did not want to come back. I don't know if any of you are part of the Bikers Against BACA. Anybody familiar with it? There you go. They help a lot because they will stand. These are people who love to ride, okay? And they help protect the victims of sex cases. And what they do, they actually surround them, and that inmate will never get close to them. Okay, they would have probably knocked his head off if they'd have seen that. But that's just a little example, because inmates are in the presence of everyone else. They're in the presence of victims, they're in the presence of jurors. Well, they can't be in the presence of jurors unless they're in plain clothes. So we have to find a way to keep them separate from the public. And it's not understood. And the sad part is, I can't stand out there during jury week. In fact, any of you going to be serving on the jury on September 17th? Because I don't want to say this in front of you because it's too close. Anybody got a jury notice? Okay, good, then I can say it. As DA, I can't stand in front of the prospective jurors and explain. The reason you can't stay in here is because we're getting ready to take a plea of guilty and it might not work. Because then your mind's automatically thinking, well, they must be guilty. All right? And I can't say the reason you can't see the inmates is because most of them are in prison garb and we don't change their clothes till right before their trial starts. I can't tell the jurors that. I can tell them after, but they're so anxious to get out of here, they don't want to hear the TA talk, okay? They don't want to hear the judge talk, they want to go home, okay? So we've got quite a few trials coming up. And am I more concerned about criminal? Of course I am. And I want to say something else, and I'll answer any questions. The Justice Center is controversial because it requires a tax. I own property privately in my law office, 90 feet from a window in the courtroom. I know that because we had to measure it during a trial one time. 90 feet. It's been in my family since 1948 when it was built. The DA's office is across the street. I live across the street. I can walk to work, walk to the courthouse. Do you really think I want to have to get in a vehicle and drive down Highway 1 to go to the courtroom? Does anybody really think that? Does anybody think that I really want my property to maybe be devalued because as a law office we had to get in our vehicles and go out there? No. But I know what we have in this courtroom. I know what we have in this courthouse. We're not moving the clerk's office. The only ones that will be moving from the clerk are what we call the criminal clerks. How many do we have? 12?
So, yes.
Well, maybe some of them are civil. How many of them actually criminal? Of fourth floor?
I'm not sure, Charles, at least 7 or 8 of them.
Okay, 7 or 8 are criminal and probably 4 civil. They would have to move. But the clerk's office is staying here. That's the first floor. Okay? The second floor has the assessor, they're staying. Police jury, they're staying. The registrar's office, they're staying. The permit office, they're staying.
That needs more space.
All of them need more space. In fact, if the Justice Center tax would pass, and if we build it, which would take approximately 3 years before we get the plans done and actual build out, then the police jury will not go forward with their plans to buy a building and parking lot across the parking lot that's there now. They're going to use the 3rd floor. Why? We can move the VA office back in. What are the offices outside the courthouse? VA? OEP would move in here. Joey Franks is the OEP director. Your office and building is, yeah. Okay, but I mean, you'll have another space. But they want to expand that and they would be able to use the third floor. So we're not abandoning the downtown Marksville. Now, I know there's probably some people saying, get it out of Marksville. We don't particularly like Marksville, those of you who live outside of Marksville. But there are people opposed to this simply because they think it's gonna hurt downtown. Well, take a look at the retail businesses around the courthouse. How many are there? 0. What do we have around the courthouse? Banks and lawyers. Okay, so some lawyers are against it because they don't want to have to get in their car and go to the court. Why Highway 1? You think about central part of the parish, okay? It's not north of Marksville. It's south of Marksville. It's near Mansura, where if you look at population numbers of each community, that area is almost as close to the center of Avoylles from a population standpoint in any other area. So obviously, and y'all been on Highway 1 lately? Going to Walmart, you know, from out of town or leaving Highway 1? It's a busy road, okay? And when we bid out to get attractive land for it, we had a bid for $1.1 million. And then we had 2 bids in the 300, one was 330, the one that won, A.J. Roy, and another one was for 360, I think. It was kind of close, 9 acres. After we did it, A.J. Roy decided he would donate the property. That's $330,000 we're saving. Now, just like anything else, he got criticized for donating because he's gonna make money off of it. You know what my response was? If he received the money, he'd still make money off of it, plus another $330,000. So I think the criticism of him was pretty bad. He got the low bid. He could have taken the $330,000 and still benefited from having it on near his property. So he donated, giving up $330,000. If it passes, it's conditioned upon passing. The last thing I wanted to say, because some people have said we don't want it because of who's in office. Judge Sproul and Judge Bennett can run one more term, because in Louisiana, if you're 70 years old, you can't run for judge again. Without giving away their ages, Judge Bennett is 8 days younger than me, so he's 64. Judge Sproul 65. Did I say that? Yeah, okay. If they both win re-election next year, they cannot run again. So at the most, they would be in there for 3 more years. I'm running for re-election. I'm 64, and I promise you, if I get elected at 71, you won't see me waving signs on the street corners, okay? I'm not running again. So if you don't vote for it because of me or Judge Bennett or Judge Sproul, that's not a good reason. Because 3 years in office, maybe. Yes.
The parish wants a new courthouse because of security problems, correct?
Well, security,
Okay.
parking,
But right now,
space.
this is the people's courthouse, and we have all entrances blocked for the citizens.
Yes.
You guys want to put it in Mansura, not near Mansura.
No, it's near Mansura. It's right across from where the charter school is, next door to.
That leads to the rest of my question.
Yeah.
If the judges feel like their lives are in danger and security problems for you or whoever, you're wanting to build it across from school, what security are you gonna have for those children?
Full security, because the tax is going to include us being able to hire 24-hour security.
24 hours.
24-hour security. That means even when we're not in session. That means right now security is down there when we have criminal court. When criminal court's over, they're gone. So somebody could walk in with an AK-47, walk upstairs, hide it in the bathroom or whatever, you know, above one of these ceilings, and be able to access it the next day. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it could. If you're concerned about the schools, that building is built to where the inmates will have one entrance. By the way, nobody else can enter that way, the way it's
Right now.
designed. Well, yeah, there's only one entrance, but they're walking through with all of you. Okay, so you have inmates.
And that shouldn't be. I mean, honestly saying, it shouldn't be.
We agree.
All entrances should not be blocked off.
We
to the
can't
citizens.
provide, the sheriff's office and the police jury cannot provide security for 7 entrances or even 3 entrances. We have 2.
And you can have one for the inmates and have one for the citizens. That's 2.
One entrance you're talking about?
2 entrances. One
Yeah,
for the
one
inmates
entrance
and
for
one for the
inmates and one,
citizens.
yeah,
That
that's.
keeps them separate.
Yeah, okay, that's a possibility. Then, the other 6 entrances are not handicap accessible, none of them. You go up the stairs. So if you're handicapped, you get to walk in with the inmates, is basically what you're saying.
Right, and the 2 handicapped spaces that are provided by the
I'm not talking about the
court,
parking spaces, I'm talking about entrances. You cannot get to any of the
it
other
won't
6.
matter because the 2 handicapped spots they're right here by the, Sally Court. When the buses come in with the inmates in court, it's blocking the handicap parking. So it can be accessible anyway.
You're talking about the parking space? Okay, the parking space when they let off inmates
So
is about
it's-
5,
it's
maybe 10
irrelevant.
minutes?
I mean-
No, it's a 10-minute, you're talking about a 10-minute stay. When they get the inmates off and they walk in, then the bus leaves.
But the person still can't get to that space.
Yeah, they'd have to wait 5 or 10 minutes. Another reason to have another building and better
You
parking.
know it doesn't work that way.
Sure it does. I watch it
And
every
one
day.
last question, one
Okay.
last question.
Sure.
What would happen to this building
This building will stay.
if the Justice Center passed?
This building will be here. I just explained all the offices that would be here. We'd be able to move the VA office in
Well,
here.
really, my question is, what kind of updates can be
Oh.
done if other offices are moved in here?
Right now, the police jury spends about $100,000 a year on the courthouse. 90% of it is going to the 3rd floor, okay? And you really can't see it. I could tell you about how we increased some of the electrical problems that we've had, or the air conditioning, and if you come in the courtroom, the air conditioning is still too loud, but it's a lot better than it was. They would have that $100,000 to spend on the balance of it, okay? And they have a capital outlay that they can switch over. It's $450,000 that they could actually switch over to help renovate the main parts of the courthouse building. Right now, their plan is to continue to try to just keep it up. An old building, how many of you own an old house? Okay, well, I do. One that was built in 1938. And I'm constantly having to upgrade it, to try to keep it up to date. An older building takes a lot more in trying to keep it up to date. And by the way, we don't meet the current fire codes, okay?
So that would be done with the tax being passed, to take care of this
It would-
and the Justice Center?
The tax pass would take care of the Justice Center, which would relieve the police jury of having to pay anything for the judges. Because the 1/4 cent that goes to maintenance would provide the security and provide all the maintenance that's necessary, all the utilities, all the insurance, and pay for security. That's what the 1/4 cent is for. You had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, I think that, and like, this is not challenging anybody or anything, but I think that, a lot of people really do understand the need for security. You know, what a lot of people may be cynical about is, because for a lot of years, people have been paying taxes on, to fix the roads and,
Your hand is up. He might not think you're
and everything, and they've seen very little in action from that. And I think that that's probably one of the main reasons a lot of people might be cynical about voting for the courthouse. So the question is.
Courtroom Justice Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right.
If, let's just say that the courthouse Justice Center does pass, could the people be assured that their taxpayer dollars will be spent wisely and that they'll start seeing some positive results from their tax dollars?
Yeah, and I understand. People are cynical about government, okay? I'm cynical about government. I get frustrated watching Congress in action, okay? I get frustrated watching the presidential debates. I get frustrated by a lot of things. This is a totally dedicated tax. It doesn't have that clause in so many others, like the ambulance tax, 911 tax that was passed in 1994, and other expenses. We don't have that in this. It's totally dedicated, 1/4, paying off the building, construction, all the interest and closing costs, 1/4 cent to the maintenance of it, which I described the various expenses for that. But I want to add to that. You say we don't have enough money for road taxes. We had an opportunity 3-4 years ago to pass road taxes in the 4 road districts in the parish. How many of you live in the Simmsport district for roads? Okay. Have y'all seen a few roads being built? If you haven't, I can name 15 of them.
Up the road from where we live,
Yeah.
and we did,
Okay.
they fixed about a mile.
Okay. Patch, okay. We'll go get a list from the police jury and see what is District 2 that passed the tax, dedicated to roads, on top of what they normally get from their police jury district. And some people didn't vote for the other 3. It almost passed in the Marksville district, almost, it was voted, but it failed. So the money's not there, okay? The last chance we had a chance to vote for a tax for school teachers, failed. okay? Was it 6 years ago, Judge? Do you remember when we tried to pass another proposal for moving the courtrooms? Was that about 6 years ago?
I think it was a little longer than that. but-
Okay, maybe 8. It was gonna be located on that parking lot. It didn't really address the parking problem, but it addressed the courtroom facilities. And it was a property tax. A lot of people wondered why we're going with the sales tax. Personally, I think a property tax is fairer. Ask people to raise their hands if they're in favor of a property tax. Okay? We have discovered people don't like property taxes, even though in my opinion, and believe me, I suffer from paying property taxes when property taxes go up, okay? So my personal opinion is what we can get passed is what will pass. And yes, it would be totally dedicated. One more thing, the judges have both agreed that assume the tax passes, that both of them are gonna step down from the commission and name 5 to 7 citizens
Seven.
from around the, 7 citizens from around the parish. Well, they will be in charge of taking care of the bidding, taking care of the construction, and taking care of the future financing of it.
And Charles, you tell me about half of it goes away after 14 years.
Right, I think it's 15, Judge.
15.
I think it's 15 years. The 14 years comes from if it's paid off early. Because nobody knows how much the interest is gonna be, nobody knows how much the legal fees are gonna be for getting a bond passed for $9 million. Because when you pass a bond for $9 million, you don't pay back $9 million. You pay back $9 million plus the closing costs, plus the interest running over that time. I know some of you are leaving, I understand. It's okay, he said you have to go. But yes, it will be 7 citizens from around the parish, yes.
I was gonna ask another question. We're talking about, okay, let's just say this tax passes, okay? We move everything here down to the new.
Not everything.
Well, I'm saying, as per the courthouse, move everything down there. We take this and turn it into other offices.
Oh, you mean
Okay.
the 3rd floor?
The
Yeah,
3rd floor,
yes.
okay. Everything is now new offices. What we were discussing as per fire marshal is, let me get my wording correctly, as what's to keep the fire marshal from having to come back in and recertify all this? Again, you know, we're discussing the fact that this doesn't meet code now. Okay, we turn this into new offices, we hack this up and turn it into new offices. You have to get re-permitted anyway.
You're correct, but we don't have to follow the current code. We do not have to put the sprinkler system in. If you're doing what we would call minor revisions, which takes this courtroom, maybe turn it into the police jury meeting room instead because it has more seating, and then taking the extra space and converting it to offices, as long as you're not moving any structural beams like that one, that's a structural beam right there.
Okay.
As long as you're not moving those, the fire marshal will approve it. When we have remodeled this courtroom, which has happened 2 or 3 times over a 25-year period or maybe a 30-year period, the fire marshal said, as long as you're not going to the 4th floor, because when you go from a 3rd to a 4th floor, the entire building has to be up to current code. But as long as we're doing things in an older building, you get some leeway.
So when you move offices that are currently not here, public offices.
Like the VA would come back.
Okay.
They want to increase the permit office size.
When those offices move here, do they have to meet the current ADA? I'm saying, does this building then have to meet the handicap?
Not the current code. We're meeting ADA now by having an elevator.
Okay.
I don't know if you were here when we discussed the elevator is actually out of plumb.
Correct.
Okay. If we were to attempt to remodel the 4th floor, then we'd have to have a totally new elevator shaft. As of now, we're meeting ADA because it's an old building, and we're not going to the 4th floor, and the structures would not be changed. So we wouldn't have to put sprinkler systems throughout the entire building. And as long as we don't change anything structurally, which I don't think would be feasible, because this building had some issues when it was first built. I don't know if you ever heard the stories about concrete falling off the top.
No, I haven't.
Okay. That was probably in the 60s or 70s.
Long time ago.
Yeah. Does that answer your question? We would not have to meet the current fire marshal code.
If new offices were to be placed in
Correct,
existing.
as long as we don't fool with the structure.
Okay.
The structural supports.
Okay.
Okay, which can be done. I mean, some of the offices now have all been adjusted without affecting the structural stability. Okay? Sure.
I was in a discussion where